What's up, traders? Andrew O'Connell here with Pristine Capital. Hope everyone had an awesome long 3-day weekend and a great Father's Day. Let's dive into these markets. We actually have a lot to cover today, and there's a lot of nuance in today's price action. So let's begin with our box scores. We had the S&P 500 finished up 2.52%. Very nice move to the upside. NASDAQ QQQ was up 2.33%. Our IWM small caps were actually our biggest laggard on this rally, which is interesting. That's like the first yellow flag here. Our dogs of the Dow were up 2.2%, and our ARK Innovation ETF was our biggest winner, up 4.38%. I'm still long my 2023 calls in ARK. And look at these days ranges. The S&P 500 had almost the best closing range at 69.1%. We also had the Dow that had a great closing range. But the ARK Innovation ETF actually had a pretty weak closing range of only 32.5%. And the small caps were also pretty weak at only 40.7%. So that's a little odd. And then as we look at the volatility of the market, the volatility did not really come off in the way that I would expect it to. For most of the day, the VIX was trading above a 30. Temporarily, we got below 30, and we'll have to take a look, but I believe we closed above a 30. Our breadth was pretty strong, with the small caps had the weakest breadth at 77% advancers. And our up volume, we finished out the day at 80.9%. My trend model did flip from a -3 to a -1, and from a -1 to a +1. So all the rules around my trading are pretty much derived from my trend model at the highest level. So what's great is like there are so many opinions right now in the financial markets. And I think a lot of people have lost a lot of money. There's people that, they're super bearish. There's people that were bullish, now they've turned bearish, vice versa. People desperate for a bottom. So I just get the feeling there's so many emotions and things that people desperately want to happen. So when that's the case and the social media gets super noisy, it's always good to rely on process. So speaking of which, I did want to share this with you. This is not something that we normally cover in these videos, but the VIX Futures Term Structure. As we just mentioned, volatility was surprisingly big pretty much the whole day. Even though the market had an incredible rally, the VIX Futures Term Structure remained inverted. So that definitely gave me some pause today. For that reason, I did not add any new long exposure. I actually took off maybe like 1 or 2 trades, nothing too crazy. But I definitely just wanted to point that out for you guys, make you aware of that. Next, we do have our crude oil month-to-date performance. We've been covering this every single day because we know the last inflation print that came out was very hot, and that was due to the plus 12% monthly performance for crude oil in May. So far for June, crude oil is actually down 4.26%. So I do believe we're setting up for a soft inflation print. And for that reason, I don't want to disobey my trend model. I don't want to throw out the playbook, anything like that. And I think this could be a good thing. So we'll have to see. So long as crude oil remains around these levels, very high chance we get that soft inflation print. There's only, I believe it's like 9 more trading sessions in June. It would be incredibly difficult for crude oil to get back to a plus 12% return from where it is today. All right, let's take a look at our Finviz Heat Map. Tesla was a big outperformer today, finished up 9.35%. These entertainment stocks, as well as Facebook, really got hit hard. And these energy stocks were back with a vengeance. Now, these names, they have taken a huge hit over the past 2 weeks. So the fact that they bounced hard today, we noticed that with the Bitcoin trend, the growth stock trend, one day does not a trend make. And when something is getting absolutely pummeled, you do have these violent bounces. So I do not believe like, oh, the energy trade is coming back or anything like that. As we look at our sectors, let's see what had the best closing range. So in terms of our top momentum slots, this is very interesting. We do have new leadership. K-Web, these Chinese internet names, we've been all over these. These are in our top momentum slot. Then we have emerging markets, internet and e-commerce. And then we have biotech. So that's very interesting. Biotech is a very risk-on area of the market. And as the market topped out, biotech was one of the first sectors to really fall apart. So it is interesting and actually pretty compelling that biotech is now in our number 3 momentum slot. And then of course we have the solar stocks just below that. But the solar stocks actually closed a pretty dreadful closing range, as well as some of these other areas of the market. The best closing range was the consumer staples as well as aerospace and defensive. Those are 2 very risk-off areas of the market. So as you can see, like the trend model flipped but we are seeing some odd mixed signals throughout today's session, and that made today like a very awkward trading session. We'll put it that way. Style factors. We have the momentum style factor finished up 3.35%. What else did we have? We had high div low vol finished up 2.14%, and growth was up just over 2.5%. Now let's take a look. We'll dive into these headline indices, and then we'll talk about some of my trades for today. So let's jump into the S&P 500. Again, trend models at +1. We did get above this 5-day EMA today, which is great. And we have the May lows just above us, right around 3,800. That's also going to coincide with this 10-day EMA. Let's also briefly look at our hourly chart, and you can see that we're trading inside of this weekly value area. Could we get a test of the weekly value area high up here at 3,800? Absolutely. And we have that red line just above that level. But what we do from there, I think, is anyone's guess. So right now, it is tough to, just get super bearish when we are starting to take back key technical levels, trend model flip. But again, we're seeing the weirdness in the volatility markets. Let's look at the VIX. Yeah, the VIX is starting to fall apart, which is great. But we did put in this hammer candle in the VIX, only down 2.71% despite this nice market rally. So something is strange, and one of our Pristine Capital members brought this up, and this makes a lot of sense to me. So this is the great part about trading in a community. People are bringing stuff up to me as well. And take a look at this. We do have inflation data that's coming out in Europe. So you can see this coming out at 2 a.m. Eastern time. We have the UK that's putting out their inflation data, and they have their PPI data. They also have their retail price data, and they have their core inflation as well. So like a lot of inflation data that's coming out. Keep in mind, this is May data. And remember, for May, even in the United States, we got a pretty elevated inflation number. This is backward looking. If the market, let's say the inflation numbers come out hot in the UK, then the market has a conniption. You can see in Canada, we're also getting those inflation numbers. So yeah, if the market has a conniption once again over the May data, that could end up being a really good buying opportunity. So that's definitely something to monitor come tomorrow morning. All right, let's take a look. We have the S&P 500. Let's very briefly touch on the NASDAQ. Also dive into some of these areas that had some momentum. NASDAQ, this is starting to look like a nice basing pattern here. Very solid performance today above that 5-day exponential moving average. I'm still long my TQQQ position that I have on via common stock. Russell 2000 also finished higher. This one actually finished below the 5-day EMA. And then we have our dogs of the Dow, which also finished above the 5-day EMA. Now let's take a look here. Some of these different areas of the market really showing some nice strength. So solar energy, this one ended up closing, I don't want to say a week, but you can say still above the 20-day simple moving average, but it's not like it made huge progress today. I also want to pull up energy. Energy, massive day up 5.18%, but look at the path. Again, I really think this could just be like a little bear market rally in this, very new downtrend within energy. And we have this virgin point of control down below us at 68.14. I think that could get hit. Now keep in mind, I am very biased. I am currently short the commodities sector, and this short is finally starting to play ball. With these commodities getting pretty weak, that is good for the inflation outlook. And I think the Federal Reserve could get a little bit more dovish. Now let's look at some of the other areas of the market that have just been awesome. KWEB and FXI, currently still holding my FXI calls. Look at what this is doing. We're seeing that volatility, but we're remaining above the 20-day simple moving average, which is fantastic. We had sort of, I don't want to call this a parabolic run, but pretty much. And now we've really just consolidated some of those gains. So I like the way this is shaping up. We have a VPOC up here at 36.31. And these were really the names that were shining the brightest today. NEO, this was one of the names from our Pristine Capital weekend watch list. Very nice performance today. We have a VPOC up here at 24.18. Li Auto, also a very strong performer, up 7.84%. This one is really off to the races. And Futu, this one out of the group looks the most actionable. You can see we got this nice tight pattern, exploded higher today, but what I would love to wait for is a retest of this 200-day simple moving average. That could come as early as tomorrow, just if we get some intraday volatility. And then we have this version point of control up here at 56.52. I think after the Chinese names all pretty much crashed, I think there was like a whole generation of traders that said like, I'm never trading a Chinese stock again. And now they're actually moving to the upside. But interestingly enough, Futu, for instance, has a forward PE ratio of 2.21, trades at a price to sale of only 8.64. So these names, they are really washed out. I'm primarily a technical market structure trader, so I'm certainly not going to ignore a sector that's starting to look better just because, oh, I have feelings about China or anything like that. And look at this, as we draw out this box, just very crude drawing here, we have basically like, at this point, a 6-month supply zone. So if we can break out above that, suddenly we have tons of buyers that are no longer underwater. That is a very positive thing. So this trend in the Chinese stocks, it could really just be getting started for all we know. This is not a super popular group. We don't see like everyone raving on FinTwit about the China stocks. So this could really be a more new uptrend. All right, let's take a look at some of my trades for today. Today, the market was pretty much going sideways, so I took this opportunity to get rid of some bad risk and really make some room for a few of these other names I would really like to participate in, such as Futu. Let's take a look here at Celsius. This is a position I had on. I took an initial target here at $67.44. I took the remainder of this off for $55.57, ended up scratching the trade in totality. So I said, as much as I would like to keep this trade on to hold it into a winner and satisfy my ego, the stock's just not showing some relative strength. I'm seeing some good opportunities in solar in China that I would like to take advantage of rather than this name. And that is the hardest thing in trading. Really just being like, hey, it doesn't matter. If I bought something that it's not really working, just take it off. And if you can take it off for a scratch, that's, fantastic. Like Celsius, it's just not looking as good as some of my other names. Like Global E, this one had some positive news today, actually. Global E, they announced that they're going to be acquiring Pitney Bowes, their e-commerce business. They're forming a partnership with Pitney Bowes. And look at this, out above some of these key moving averages, out above this monthly point of control. This is a horse I really want to continue to ride up until, at the very least, this VPOC up here. But something like Celsius is just not playing ball. On a day like this where the market's up a lot, but I'm a little bit uncertain due to some of these divergences, that presents the perfect day to clean up your portfolio a little bit. Another trade that I took an attempt at today, this was my only opening trade. Take a look here. I do have some long SPY calls on the books, but today as a scalp trade, when I saw that the VIX was very bid, I put on these July 5th 370 strike SPY puts for $6.36. Played this one as a scalp. Now this is a trade setup that when the market gaps up big, the volatility remains bid. This is a really high probability trading setup for me. For today, this just did not really pan out. So I ended up closing these out for $5.52. I paid $6.36. And I put here volatility hitting the lows. I put they stole my lunch money today. A lot of times I can snag a nice day trade in the SPY. Today was one of those days where, hey, if I try this trade, 10 times, it's probably going to work for me 6. I don't want to be stubborn if the market's not coming off. I don't want to accumulate these positions where they have, a lot of theta decay. They start expiring on me. So it's super important just be proactive. When you put something on the books, we all have that ego that it's like, I don't want to quit on this position. I'm not a quitter or like whatever. You want to have that feeling, but with regard to your entire trading system, but you don't really want to have it for individual trades. Last thing here that I want to touch on, S&P 500 seasonality. Seasonality tends to bottom out in late June. June is a very volatile month. And then as you go into July, the seasonality gets a ton better. So that's another reason why, hey, if this short scalp doesn't work, I'm not going to hang on to it, especially as my trend model is flipping positive. So yeah, heading into tomorrow, that VIX futures term structure, definitely keep an eye out for that. Also keep an eye out for this inflation data that's coming out overnight and the fact that the trend model has flipped. So with that being said, that about does it for this market recap video. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. And as always, I will see you all tomorrow.